Let's talk supply chain. So, welcome to the show, Sil. I'm so excited that you're here.
I'm so excited. It's always great to talk to you, and having just met you in person for the first time, it feels like I've known you forever at
I
this
know,
point.
right? And honestly, I literally sprung this on you today, which is amazing because I was like, so I wanted you to be part of the Woman in Supply Chain series, anyways. How do you feel about doing it today?
What are you doing right now? Love it. I feel like it's such a good analogy for being in supply chain
And
anyways.
I think it's also representative of being an entrepreneur, which we both are,
Absolutely.
right?
Definitely.
So, anyway, so yeah, you and I met for the first time literally at TPM just about 3 weeks ago. Well, by the time this airs, it'll be about 5 weeks. And I don't know how we got connected. Do you remember how we got connected? Now, you've already been on an episode of Blended, which was a
Yeah.
fabulous episode, and we got some really, really great feedback about that. I'll get our show notes person to put that in the show notes so that we can link to your Blended episode so everybody can go and listen to that. And then you won our registration contest for the Blended Pledge because we had some free TPM registrations that we were giving away. And then we had you on the panel for the TPM like DEI honors. And so I feel like you said, like we've known each other forever. And it's because we've done all these things and I don't even remember how we got connected.
I don't know. I'm sure if we like went back in LinkedIn DMs, it would show up at some point, but I don't remember. I'm sure I was just engaging with your content because you produce such amazing things in general for women in supply chain, which not enough people talk about. But then also, I love what you're doing with the Blended podcast, and I think somewhere along the lines, our values like clearly aligned, and it was just well, these people should know each other.
That's awesome. And since then, you know what? I reached out to you to subscribe to the newsletter.
That sounds great.
And then you commented on a post about Blended Pledge. And I was like, "Hey, want to be on the podcast?"
Oh, the entrepreneur journey, hustle every day at every moment.
Because I looked at your profile and I was like, "She's gonna be amazing on the Blended Pod." And I do this, right? Like I reach out. I am so random on LinkedIn. People must think I'm like super crazy because I literally rando reach out to people and I'm like, "Hey, love your profile. Want to be on the Blended podcast?"
I think that's what it's all about. That's where every when I started my first business, we made up a rule that was like everybody gets 5 minutes. It didn't matter what it was, and if it didn't have any like apparent relevance, we're just like, yeah, for sure, I'll take that meeting. And so many great opportunities like this have come out of that mentality of just embrace it, and roll with it, and see what comes
Yeah,
of it.
I love that. So tell us about you. So this episode, obviously for Women in Supply Chain, is all about you, which I don't know how comfortable you are with that, but we are jumping into the deep end. But tell us about yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and talk to us about how this journey in supply chain started with you because you have had a crazy journey and I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
My journey is so odd. It's such a hard question to answer when you're like, "Oh, what's your background?" It's like, "Okay, well, I'm a veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces. I retired about a decade ago now, which feels like it makes me sound very old. Um, but since then, I really like started a journey within the startup world and worked in finance startups and all these different things, just helping people develop their vision and
Mhm.
ideas. Um, my supply chain journey started when I met a really good friend of mine, Cindy Christensen, and we were all like at a barbecue one
Of
summer,
course.
and we're like that standard like meeting somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And she's like, "I'm a customs broker." And I was like, "Cool. I don't know what that means." So she said something else, and I was like, "Still have no idea what you're talking about." And we became really great friends. And all I saw regularly as we talked about work and business and things like that was somebody with all of these really great innovative ideas in an industry where they were stuck doing everything in the oldest
Mm,
way possible. And at that point, I had assisted with a couple of different businesses finding investors, building business plans, and things like that. And she and I got to talking about, like, oh, your unicorns and rainbows kind of dreamland of, like, well, if I did this myself. And it so quickly got to a point of, well, we obviously need to do this then.
nice.
And we just we went on a road trip somewhere, and by the end of this road trip, we had the whole business plan sorted out. We had like this vision about what we wanted to build, and we found some investment backing, and we just jumped into it. That was in early 2017.
Now, you are not new to road trips because, like, literally after TPM, you were like, "We're going on a road trip."
It was such a great the opportunity to go to TPM and speak on that panel and everything was so huge. But it was the first time that Sydney and I had like reemerged kind of under the new umbrella of what we're building next, and because of that, it was an opportunity to leave from Canada and drive there and meet some really important people along the
Okay,
way. So people in like San Jose and rando other parts of that journey that I've worked with for years, or she has, and we haven't met in person or haven't seen in a long time,
amazing.
and make those connections so that we could connect with them on the journey of what's next for us.
Yeah, so you took the opportunity of that registration at TPM, turned it into a road trip, which was not only fun, but I'm pretty sure was fruitful. Now, I want to get to your new endeavor in just a second, but that first business that you built with Cindy, talk to us about that because I believe it was very focused on customs. It was so well before its time, and I think there's a pretty good exit story there too, so tell us all about that.
So we started community customs brokers together, and our vision for that was Cindy's a mom, and uh, the customs industry, at least in Canada, is also you have to sit at a physical desk in a physical office and go to a big printer and
So much
have like
paperwork.
so much paperwork. And one of the key visions that she had when we started it was to get away from that. And customs in Canada is not cut up to that. They're so far behind that. And we went through the journey of what would it take to start digitizing and creating an environment where we could reemploy amazing women who weren't staying in the industry because it didn't support their family and their work life balance and all these other pieces. So we built that based on the premise of if we could just convince customs that it's okay to not have physical pieces of
Uh-huh,
paper, then we could move the whole industry
right.
forward. And so we started on that journey, and we got those things in place, and we were really starting to build traction. It got a lot of attention very quickly, and we had been in business for less than 2 years, and I don't even know what the catalyst for, but four different businesses came to us and was like, "So, are you for sale?" We're
Wow.
like, "No."
No.
One was another customs brokerage. One was a freight forwarder who was looking to have a customs brokerage added to them. Um, One was overseas somewhere, and the fourth one that really got our attention was Flexport.
Mhm.
And so they reached out to us, and we went kind of back and forth, and they flew out to meet us in our office in
Which
Cloverdale.
is in Vancouver, just so everybody knows. Close to
Yeah, it's a
Vancouver.
very small little community
Yep.
outside Vancouver, and so we hosted them at our office there. And by the time they left our office, they called us and they were like, "Hey, so will you fly to San Francisco?" And we're like, "This is weird." They hadn't told us that they were looking to purchase us or anything else. They were just we're looking for a new partnership brokerage in Canada. We're like, sure, it's a weird way to win business, but we will do whatever it
Yeah.
takes. So we flew to San Francisco and we met with them in their office, and they it was like a 3 hour meeting where we didn't talk at all. They were just like Brian Peterson came in. Every other department came in and sold to us about why they were amazing. We're like, this is weird. What is happening here? And it wasn't. We didn't even get to. By the time we landed home after that trip, we got a phone call first thing Monday morning, and they're like, "So we'd like to buy you."
Happy
So
Monday.
it was a crazy journey. Obviously, we said yes. It was a huge opportunity for us to partner with a tech company who was trying to do a lot of what we were
Yeah.
doing on a larger
Mhm.
scale, and the opportunity was just really exciting. So the acquisition took very little
Right.
time, um, and yeah, it happened in the summer of 2019.
Wow, right before the pandemic. What a way to go into the pandemic. So,
Yeah.
that is just such a crazy story, and I think you've got some stories behind that office before they showed up to that office that we won't talk about here, but if anybody wants to reach out to Sil separately on DM in LinkedIn, she might tell you. I'm not 100% on that, but she might. Anyways. So what did you end up doing after that? You were kind of like, that's an amazing Monday. Now, what do I do?
Yeah, so for a lot of our team who were customs brokers, like we didn't fluff up our team. We had like people executing every day who were
Mm,
cross-trained in new ways that the industry wasn't. So it was really easy for a lot of them to be ingested into what Flexport wanted Canada to
okay.
become. Um, so I spent about a year working really closely with an amazing human on their team, Dan Clark, who I can't say enough good things about. He flew to Vancouver and kind of lived with us for about in the office. It felt like we were living there for about 6 weeks or so, and he and I put together a plan and a roadmap to win all of the business that they had the opportunity to internalize that had external
Okay.
custom
Yeah.
services in Canada. And then I spent a bunch of time flying around either, the East Coast to New York and things like that, and working with their sales team, but also training them on how to win Canadian customs
Okay.
business, which is wildly different than how you would win customs business in the
Uh-huh.
US.
Don't I know?
It was really good. I had a really great year. Met some of the most amazing humans there, but it really like that environment wasn't
Mhm.
mine, and it never really felt like it was mine, so it made sense for me to move on. I love building startups, passionate about scaling startups, and so I took a worked with two organizations since, and the role that I'm in right now is an in-house brand who needed so many supply chain
Uh,
solutions. Really thankful to realize early on again that I was in way over my head with that
yeah.
part. So I brought Cindy
Nice.
in, and she joined the team in June as well. So
Awesome. I love to hear that. I mean, when you're working with somebody and it's a really good partnership and then some things happen, but you're still bringing each other along. You're still empowering each other. And that's, two women in supply chain, right? That are holding each other accountable, empowering each other on a day to day, making sure that the opportunities are for everyone and not just for self, which I think is really, really important as well. And, noticing what it is that you're good at and maybe what they're good at and making sure that they come together for the greater good, right? I mean, too often I think we overlook that important aspect of having a partner or working with somebody, or when you go into a job like you said, you know some of it you knew, some of it you didn't, and you needed somebody else and you brought them along too.
I think that's such an important statement for like especially women in the supply chain industry when we look at it is we spend so much of our careers growing into that industry fighting for any breath in the room at
Yeah.
all. And it it, it used to be, maybe 10 years ago that there were so few women in that room that it was so hard to partner up with other women in that room because there was so little air to
Mhm.
take. And that's what I mean. One of the things I loved about TPM and being able to be there was how many amazing women were in that room and how important it was to every one of us to learn what the other was doing, how we could partner, and how we could
Mhm.
support. And that message was so clear with some of the amazing founders and other leaders and everybody else that was there. It was such a clear
Yeah.
difference, um, not only in that room, but also when we look back on the journey when we started, we didn't have community and that type of support.
Yeah, a community is so, so important. And actually, I have a new initiative coming out called the Secret Society of Supply Chain, where we're going to bring people together in community because it's one thing to be a part of, the Let's Talk Supply Chain page. It's another one where we're getting together on a regular basis and making space, right? Safe space. It's something that I'm known for, especially with the blended podcasts and things like that. And so I want to be able to bring that to more people. I mean, at the end of the day, I only have 5 people on that show every month. I don't think I could have any more because otherwise it'll be a 5 hour conversation and nobody's going to listen to it. So talk to me about what it has been like because you're a veteran, right? So the Canadian Armed Forces, that's very male dominated.
Very
Then
much
you've
so.
come into supply chain, and Cindy pretty much was like, "You're coming with me." And at the time, it was fairly male dominated as well, right? I mean, if we're thinking about the timing, I think it was what, 2016, 2017. Like supply chain media wasn't even a word. That's when I started the podcast. So
Yeah.
talk to us about what that's been like, where you've gone from one male dominated to another. Do you see some similarities? What has that been like for you? How far do we still have to go? Like, what's your thoughts on all this?
I will add like finance in there, like everything, every room I've ever been in as an adult was a male dominated
Okay.
industry. My first job right out of high school was as an avionics technician where I like installed
Huh.
wiring systems in fighter jets because that's a normal work
Yes.
history to have. But like I put coveralls on every day and I crawled through airplanes and installed
Nice.
wiring. Again, major male dominated industry. And when I look at that to the military to finance and other things, the one clear kind of thing that has carried me through there is I can identify one, maybe two women in every one of those things who saw another junior or new
Mhm.
person in that crowd and was like, "You're not doing it alone," and like took me either under their wing or decided to position themselves as a mentor. And I think the more we do that, you see at TPM how you hosted something that one night, and we all just sat around kind of your table with all of those women, and we're all talking about how it's better now, but it's nowhere near as good as it needs to
Mhm.
be. And we look at what a safe space look like at conferences, at sales conventions, at all of these different spaces, and I will add to that as well that I'm a queer woman, and being in any alternative space that isn't straight white male in this industry is uncommon, and it others you. And I think we're doing such a better job of that as leadership,
Mhm.
as women in leadership today than anybody did 10 years
Mhm.
ago. But i I can only think how amazing it's going to be in another 10 years when we have such a broader level of
Yeah.
diversity
Yeah.
in general.
Yeah, so in saying that, what would you like to see changed in the industry? Like, what's kind of the next major focus that we can sort of focus on?
I think one of the big things for me is how excited I am for the thing that you're building next, because what I see is going back to
Mm.
community. You really look at why don't women choose this industry? Why don't women stay in this industry? And why aren't women promoted within this
Mhm.
industry? And you look at how rare it is to find a mentor and um, leadership, guidance, training, any of that. The industry doesn't create those
Mhm.
opportunities. Like we have the Canadian Society of Customs Brokers and like these minor little pieces, but there is no unifying place where continuing education, promotion opportunities, and things like that exist. And I would love to see where your space that you're building develops and grows into where that's the place where those things
Yeah.
happen. because they don't happen on an individual company
Yeah.
level.
Well, and it's not just about education, right? It's not just about educating ourselves on the topics, right? It's about that professional and personal development. And, I have some people that come back to me and they're like, why woman in supply chain? You know, because they don't want to be seen as other. But it's not about it's not necessarily just about segregating women from men in this particular instance. It's about celebrating women in supply chain because I can tell you, we don't do it enough ourselves. Even when I have
No,
somebody on the series, they don't promote their episode. They think that they're they're promoting themselves, but also like putting themselves out there and they're not sure if they should do that or not do that. And so it's a really, really big conversation. I think the other part of it too is you have a group with men and women. Women are going to share about their
no,
experiences and get really deep on a personal and professional level with other peers that include men at the level that we need. Like, this is something that we need. We need to get together with like minded individuals who have been through things that we've been through that can resonate and be like, yeah, you know what? That's happened to me. So I can go, that's happened to you? Oh man, I don't feel alone anymore.
exactly. And I think, we spent so long um, finding and taking any available space in that room, and we really haven't, as women in this industry, embraced the opportunity to step in and take space where we deserve to.
Ah, I love
And
that.
that's where we just need to take away that, like, I will take whatever I'm given and just walk in and command that space that we deserve.
Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, even today, how uncomfortable are we talking about ourselves? Still, you're like, I think somebody else should do this because they have a much more interesting story. And I'm like, no, like you are interesting. Your story is interesting. But it's funny because even you and I do it.
so often, I was talking to there are some amazing men out there who work really hard at creating that space, and one of them, his name is Robert McLaws, and he's a founder as well. And I will never forget meeting him in person for the first time in Florida last year, and him hearing that part of Cindy and I's story, and she was there as well, and have him just kind of pause, take a physical step back, and was like, how have you not said this out loud in the last 2 years that I've known you online? Like, what is wrong with
What
you?
is wrong? And that reaction alone, what is wrong with you? Like, seriously, because they're like, guys, like, this is what we need to hear. This is what the next generation needs to hear. This is what your peer next to you needs to hear. And we just don't
Yeah,
talk about it enough.
I'm so guilty of this. Where, even this morning, where you're like, "Hey, you want to do a thing?" And I was like, "Not very interesting." So, but we do that, and I think it's so hard for me to remember that the more of these opportunities I accept and embrace and seek out, the more space I'm creating for more women in
Yeah.
the industry. And it's not just about me. It's not just about my story. It's not about you and your story. It's about somebody seeing themselves in
Mhm.
us when they hear our
Yeah.
stories, and making sure that there's more space to be louder.
Yes, and we keep talking about Cindy, and I want to promise the audience that Cindy is going to be part of the Woman in Supply Chain series coming up in a couple of months for sure. For sure, we're going to have her on as well because she's an important part of the story. She's an important part of your business and what you're doing. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what you've got going on? What does the future
Absolutely.
hold for Sil?
Oh, it's gonna be fun.
Always fun.
So when when we started Community Customs Brokers, we had this vision of what we were gonna start to build and things like that. And that journey ended so
Mhm.
quickly in such a great way that we didn't have the opportunity to really, like, dig into the bigger, deeper things that we wanted to build. And so we've toyed around with this idea for a long time. It's like, do we want to do this again? We can't just do it again. We have to do something different. So, um, in 2023, we're undergoing some of the admin business part about being founders again, and those will be out of the way in the next couple of months from a licensing standpoint in Canada and the U.S. But we will be re-emerging under the X Global brand, and coming at it still through a customs first lens, but looking at it as a global trade management platform. And I think the easiest way that I could summarize that, if you look at everybody else who's trying to solve supply chain from a tech perspective, they're all looking at it from a freight
Yeah.
perspective. And there's only one unifying factor about supply chain that is true regardless of mode of transport, destination, origin, everything. It's like every single shipment touches a customs
Yeah.
broker. And when you look at like what is the source of truth and what is the source of knowledge and change that a business needs, it starts with customs through that lens because everything flows through that area. So we're building something really cool
Y
this time
Yeah,
again.
I'm
And
so excited, and hopefully you'll come back on the show and talk to us more about what that actually is and looks like once you're, up and running, and you can tell us a little bit more about it. But I'm super excited for both of you. So talk to me about give me some advice. Like, what would you say to any woman in leadership or maybe any female looking to come into the industry? So I want two pieces of advice.
the first one, anybody in leadership, I would say, the everything is broken today, and you should look at it through that lens. The HR practices, the promotion practices, um, remote work, hybrid work, the opportunity, advancement. There's no succession plan. There's so many brokers in Canada that are generational and they have no plan in place right now. People haven't. When was the last time somebody did an HR review? Just have one-on-ones with your team. Sit down and learn what makes them tick and what what their currency is for like what matters to them. Send them out to things. Webinars everywhere is create opportunity for things to change inside of your own
Yeah,
organizations. And if you only have influence and you're a people leader or an individual contributor or any of those things, seek those opportunities yourself. Find community first and lean into that community, and then that's where the change will happen. Because otherwise, we're just one person in one
yeah,
room.
absolutely. And I
So,
think that answers it for both the people looking to come into supply chain as well as for the leaders, right? I think if you're looking to come into any industry, whether it's supply chain or any other industry, you do need to look for community, and you do need to figure out what community resonates with you the most. And then what are the opportunities that you as a professional want to have? And then figure out the steps to get there.
absolutely. One of my weird background things is I'm also a registered professional
Of course you
counselor,
are.
um, and with a career counseling piece of that. And my favorite thing to like bring into discussions one on one with anybody on my team or people in my life is always can always ask yourself, what do I want to be when I
Yeah.
grow up? Because none of us has any idea what the answer to that question is, and it will change so many times in the period of your
Mhm.
life. And if you have a technical job and you don't have a creative outlet, find that somewhere else in your life. But like pick and choose what your priorities are in the workplace and find those
Yeah.
opportunities. It will always come back to community for
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. What are you most excited about for this industry? I mean, I know you've got a new product coming out, but other than that, what are you excited for in 2023? What are you excited for supply chain and supply chain professionals and maybe even entrepreneurship in supply chain?
I think we're at this period of time that is so exciting because COVID taught all of us that the way that we've always done things just doesn't work
Yeah.
anymore. And so there's so much space for opportunity for change and new ideas. Look at like the growth in e-commerce
Mhm.
businesses. the diversification from the reliance on China to like to watch Mexico become a major manufacturing destination, how much that will change business in North America. The modernization of customs systems and the changes that have happened in the last 12 months in the US and Canada are
Right.
profound. If you're not a part of this industry, you won't know why that's so exciting. But if you are, you'll be like, it's so cool. We went from like you must have a physical wet ink on paper signature to digitizing how we communicate with the governments of the
Yeah.
world. And we're nowhere near there yet. So I think my biggest piece of advice was it doesn't matter how long you've been in this industry, where you sit in this industry, or what lens you're looking at it through. Find somewhere to explore the idea that you have, because I guarantee you that you see it in a way that nobody else does, because there's so many different lenses in supply chain to look at it through.
Wow. And there's so many moving parts.
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing to me where you look at like the major like TPM strictly about ocean, but this massive amount
Yep.
of talent and ideas and everything in the room, and then you look at it, it's like there's so many other things as well, and so many other conferences and so many other just find somebody to attach your idea to. And um, if you're like me and you're newer to the industry but not to doing things, find somebody. The reason I keep bringing Cindy up is that she taught me everything.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the industry and didn't understand how things get to the
Yeah.
shelves and stuff like that. If I can learn all that in the last like what 5 or so years, the opportunities are endless for everybody else.
They
So
absolutely are. So what's one thing that you would leave the audience with kind of like thinking about or maybe putting into action when it comes to being a woman in supply chain?
I think the biggest thing that I would say was if you're not active on LinkedIn and you're not a part of a
Right.
community, go find one. Do not limit yourself to physical events in person. The amount of collaboration, connection that you can gain online with people you may never meet in person will open every door for you.
Yeah.
So get active on LinkedIn, dedicate no less than like 15 minutes in your day at the beginning of the day, interact, meet people, and like treat it like a part of your
Yeah,
job.
and you'll never know what opportunities come out of it. I mean, look at what we've done just, I think, over the last 6 months. So, if anybody wants to connect with you, where do they do that?
LinkedIn's a great place. Start with there. I will take my own advice on there. I do not gatekeep my inbox, but if you immediately connect and pitch slap me to try to sell me something,
I am the same way. I'm like,
don't
dude,
do it.
no, why are we doing this?
But if you send me a message and you say, "Hey, I heard what you were talking about on Sarah's podcast. Can we talk?" You will absolutely get time on my calendar.
Yeah, yeah, or even like message a week later. Just
Yeah,
don't do it as soon as we connect.
right.
Biggest piece of advice from this whole episode.
No pitch slapping. So bad. There's no way to come across genuine.
I love that. I love that. Well, Sil, thank you so much for coming on last minute and raining all of your magical sprinkle dust all over us because you're such a light that shines so bright in this industry. And we appreciate you. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for creating space consistently for me and other women in the industry. It's great work you do. It's always a pleasure.